Welcome back, everybody, to episode 4 of the CG Sports Podcast. Today, we're going to be doing a different sport for this week's episode. We're going to be doing the NBA. I'm going to be talking about my NBA Finals predictions and just a couple things we're going to speak about. We're going to talk about some of the main headlines going into this year's Finals. We're going to take a quick look back on how each team got to this point, strengths and weaknesses of each team, one player that needs to step up for their squad, the keys to success, and my overall final predictions. So let's get straight into it. Starting off with some of the main headlines, of course, two teams in the Lakers and Heat both missed the playoffs last season and are now both in the NBA Finals for, their own specific reasons. Of course, for the Lakers, it was LeBron's first year there and they just overall weren't successful. The Heat brought in Jimmy Butler and brought in a ton of young talent, and that's how they've flipped things around. LeBron James, of course, entering his 10th NBA Finals, his first in the West, and he's playing against his former team in the Miami Heat. Also, as well, Andre Iguodala playing in his 6th straight NBA Finals and his 5th against LeBron. LeBron, of course, the way I see it, looking for revenge against Iggy. He won Finals MVP on LeBron in 2015, and he has a 3-1 record against him in the Finals, And of course, for LeBron, this Finals is a lot more personal considering the passing of Lakers legend Kobe Bryant this January, who, as we all know, was a great friend to LeBron, and I'm sure he would love to win this for him. Another thing is just there's a lot of beef between these two teams, between specific players, more specifically Kyle Kuzma and Tyler Hero. I don't know how accurate it is, but I've been told that they have some kind of beef over an Instagram model that Tyler Hero speaks to. Personally, I find this very childish. I think you're in the NBA Finals, you're a professional, you need to keep your personal life out of it. I think they need to just put it behind them and focus on the series, because if not, things can get messy. Another matchup of beef we got is J.R. Smith and Jay Crowder. If you guys aren't aware, J.R. Smith, a couple seasons ago, got a flagrant foul on Jay Crowder that led to him spraining his left ACL. So yeah, there's a lot of tension between these two teams, I must say. So we're just gonna start off. We're gonna give a quick recap of the Lakers' playoff run and basically just how they got here. So the Lakers entered the playoffs this year as the 1 seed. Played 8 games in the bubble, no problems there. Matched up against the Blazers in the first round with a red-hot Damian Lillard. Keep in mind, this is a guy who averaged 50 points in his last 3 games after what I would consider a shocking Game 1 victory that the Blazers got. I don't think anyone... there was a lot of people who thought the Blazers were going to be the team and the quote-unquote best 8 seed in NBA history. But after that Game 1 victory, they didn't do anything from there. LeBron went on to win the next 4, averaged 27, 10, and 10, and there was no problems there. Just simply outmatched. Next up in the second round, the Lakers played against the Houston Rockets, who, like the Blazers, many thought had a chance to win, simply because of their ability to get hot and have amazing three-point shooting games, as well as the fact that they have 2 former MVPs as their starting guards. After, once again, another Game 1 loss for LeBron, Houston went in Game 1. As we said, they got their shooters hot. They stayed hot. They were splashing threes all night. Braun did what playoff LeBron does. Averaged 25, 10, and 7. Closes the series in 5 again. Finally, in the Western Conference Finals, LeBron and the Lakers played the Denver Nuggets. This is the team that bumped who most of us thought to be this year's champions, and if not, at least the team that was going to head to the finals. Personally, I didn't, but this is what a lot of people thought. LeBron once again averaged near a triple-double and ended the series in Game 5 with a 36-point, 16-rebound, and 10-assist outing. Overall, to put it simply, LeBron has once again proven himself as the best player in the world, and of course, as we said, he now faces his former team in the Miami Heat. All right, next up, we're going to get into the Miami Heat. They are an absolute Cinderella story, just a shocking... It's shocking to see these guys in the finals right now. The Heat, of course, led by Jimmy Butler, who actually stated directly before the playoffs in an interview that this team is built to win a championship. And at the time, a lot of people didn't take him seriously, but now you kind of have to. So yeah, as I said, this team's led by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and tons of young talent on this team. I mean, look at Tyler Hero, who's an amazing all-around scorer, put up 37 off the bench to close, I believe it was Game 5 over the Celtics. They got Duncan Robinson, who's a great spot-up shooter, and of course Kendrick Nunn, who's just a really good all-around player. So they started their playoff run in the 5 seed, played the 4 seed Pacers in the first round. Of course, this is a series that most of us thought, usually when you see a 4-5, it's a pretty close series that goes 5 to 7 games. I mean, 5 I guess isn't very close, but usually 6 to 7 games. But this is a Pacers team that had a red-hot TJ Warren and tons of talent. You got guys like Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, just some all-around good players. And the Heat felt no pressure at all. Close the series in 4, sweep the Pacers with ease. Second round, matching up with the Bucks in the second round. This is basically a team that included a back-to-back MVP and the guy everyone expected to breeze to the finals. And in what was then considered an upset, Jimmy Butler dropped 40 points in Game 1 on, of course, a Heat win from there. And the Heat, after that, I think they gave up one game. I believe it was Game 4. They went up 3-0, dropped one. Chris Middleton went in for like 37. And they closed the series in 5. No problems once again. And, of course, finally, the series we all watched last, they matched up against the Boston Celtics for a spot in the finals. And personally, for this series, it was just Bam Adebayo. That man, he was the difference maker in the series. I mean, we saw him, I believe it was in Game 2, got the game-winning block on Jason Tatum, and he scored a bunch of clutch buckets in Game 6 to win the series. Of course, as I just said, in 6 games. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each team. We're going to start off with the Lakers, and we're going to speak on their strengths. So I think the Lakers' primary strength is going to be their defense. These guys, of course, have one of the best defensive ratings in the league, and they had the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year in Anthony Davis. They've been able to contain a ton of guys this year. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, the list goes on. These guys, although I can't say they necessarily lock up, they always find a way to contain just enough to get that win, and that's all you have to do. When you're winning games, it doesn't matter what it takes to get it. That win is all that matters at the end of the day. Another real big strength of the Lakers is their team chemistry. I feel that in a game like the NBA Finals, it's so important to be able to trust your teammates, and that's what chemistry is all about. I think these guys believe and have confidence in each other. They also work well in high-pressure situations, so I think that'll be a big help for them. If we're talking weaknesses, I think the biggest weakness for the Lakers has really been their three-point shooting. Their shooting has really been an issue throughout the playoffs. Danny Green is yet to heat up, and he's a guy who we know from his time with the Spurs. Come playoff time, he really seems to get it going, but we haven't seen that so far. And, of course, some of their role players, guys like Alex Caruso and KCP, have been very inconsistent with their three-point shooting, and it doesn't feel like a threat for the Lakers. It just doesn't feel like their three-point shooting is something you have to worry about and game plan for night in and night out. Although I will say it has improved from rounds 1 and 2. I think they still have a lot more work to do, and they really got to fix that up. Moving on to the Miami Heat, I believe that their biggest strength has got to be, well, the opposite of the Lakers is their three-point shooting. They got one of the best teams in the NBA in three-point percentage. Tons of good shooters. Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero shooting lights out throughout the season. Even guys like Jimmy Butler and Jay Crowder could put one down. Goran Dragic, these are all guys that could put one down if you need them to. The Lakers guards, I think they're just not the greatest defensively. I mean, don't get me wrong. Rondo can, he's an all right defender, but no great defensive talent off of the Lakers' side. So I think these Heat guards need to heat up and stay consistent from three-point land. Another great thing about the Heat, like the Lakers, is their team chemistry. I think the Heat, in general, their players just work so well together. I think they have the best chemistry in the league. I think their passion, hunger to win is really what brings this team together, and it helps them win close games. I think that's simply the reason why they're here in the finals. Now, if we're talking about weaknesses for the Heat, I think the biggest one is their transition offense and their all-around fast break scoring. Due to their naturally slower-paced offense, they're bottom 5 as of right now in fast break points per game. I think for them, this could be really costly, as, of course, the Lakers are one of the best fast break teams in the league, and the Heat really need to either They need to keep up with them to have a shot at winning. But I think if Miami can try and control the pace and avoid turnovers, I think they should be fine, and that'll be a huge help if they'll be able to do that. Next up, I want to speak on players that I feel need to step up. For the Lakers, I know it might sound crazy, but it's LeBron James. Now, don't get me wrong. LeBron did not play bad in the last years against Denver. He hasn't played bad against Houston, hasn't played bad against Portland, hasn't played bad at all. But I think his biggest issue coming into the finals is his play down the stretch and his lack of aggressiveness. Now, listen, I understand. LeBron is an amazing passer. This guy is, what more can I say? He's an amazing passer. The guy knows how to get people open, and he's just all around. I mean, he almost averages 10 assists a game. But I think he needs to be, not necessarily, but he needs to be more selfish in a way. He needs to be the dominant scorer if they want to win. I get it. You want to set your guys up, get dudes open. But I've seen a lot of situations, especially in the Denver series, where he had a chance to hit the hole and maybe, take a little contact, try and get a foul or finish, but he leaves it to kind of, for example, hit Danny Green in the corner and he's going to go miss a corner three, or he'll pump fake and try and go to the rim and just get packed. So I think LeBron has to be a bit more aggressive and kind of assert himself as that main scorer on this team. Now for the Heat, I got Jimmy Butler as the guy who needs to step up. And it's a very, very similar reason to LeBron. He needs to be more aggressive. As we've seen from the first, three series they've played, he really hasn't had to attack too much because there's just so many other guys on this team who can step up and take over. I mean, look at Bam in Game 6. Look at Tyler Hero in Game 5. These are dudes who can just take over the game and just put it down. I mean, Duncan Robinson throughout that whole Boston series was just shooting lights out. And if you needed some points, you could just go to these dudes. They can take over the game, shoot lights out, and give you the buckets you need. So Jimmy hasn't really had to do too much. But I think with this Lakers team, better defensively, I think he's going to have to do more than he's had to. Next up, we're just going to talk about the keys to success for each team, starting with the Lakers. The simple matter, it's you can't let Miami shooters get hot. As we've seen, and as I've stated, when guys like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero get hot, even Goran Dragic, they can be insanely difficult to stop. And of course, when you see this, even when we saw this in the Boston series, when these guys get hot, it draws so much more attention to them and it opens the floor for everyone else. I've seen so many situations where there's miscues on defense, like Duncan Robinson catches the ball at the wing on the three-point line, and they're so worried about him, he gets double-teamed, and Jimmy Butler gets open in the cut for a layup. We've seen it time and time again. These guys just have a presence when they get hot, and you got to pay attention to them. But if they can keep them at an average pace and not let these dudes heat up, then you don't have to worry about that. I think simply if the Lakers can prevent a great shooting performance and not let any of their shooters get hot, they have an amazing chance at winning. Next up, we're going to talk for the Heat. I think their biggest key to winning is going to have to be their defense and controlling the pace of the game. Now, of course, we watched the Lakers so far in the playoffs. LeBron and AD have a major impact on the Lakers' success. I think what Miami really needs to do is they need to minimize them as much as possible. I think they need to introduce things like occasional double teams and trying to trap these guys and generally just force everyone else, their role players, to step up and score. We've seen it time and time again that their role players, they don't step up sometimes in big moments. I mean, we're talking about, as I said, guys like Danny Green, KCP, Alex Caruso, Rondo, all these guys. I think what the Heat need to do is challenge these role players to get buckets, make open shots, do what they're supposed to be doing as role players, which is take the extra shots when the stars can't do it. And I think Miami really needs to challenge these role players, make them take shots, as I said, and see where it goes from there. So as I'm sure most of you know, Bam, from when we saw him play against LA, he can guard Anthony Davis decently well. And although LeBron is going to be more difficult, I think with Jimmy Butler, I think they'll be able to get it done. And if they can contain and do, as I said, occasional double teams, trapping guys, forcing their role players to score the basketball, I think Miami will be able to get it done on the defensive end. Another thing, as we said, the pace of the game, the Heat need to play more half-court basketball. They need to slow the pace down and play at their own level. Because if they do this, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen, there have been times where the Celtics, Bucks, even the Pacers I mean, the Pacers didn't win one, but you saw it in there too, that these are teams that, they start heating up. You see them start to get into a rhythm, and then the Heat just take their time. They slow the pace down. They destroy momentum. And if they can do this with the Lakers, they're going to start forcing them to play their game, play at their pace. They're not going to let them play their fast tempo offense. I think if they do this, it could be a huge help in them getting the win. And finally, to close out this week's episode, we're going to talk on my final predictions. Overall, I believe the 2020 NBA champions will be the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games. And this is why. The Lakers are simply the better team. They have 2 top 5 players in the league, and the Heat, they don't even have 1 top 10 player. Now, I know what you're saying. They have 2 stars, but you got to look at the team around them. Basketball is a team game. Yes, basketball is a team game. But when you have guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis who can just simply put teams on their back, the rest of the team, although it matters, it doesn't matter as much. The Heat also, they simply lack experience in the playoffs. Tons of young guys on their roster. I mean, the only guy who really even has real playoff experience is Jimmy Butler. I mean, Goran went a couple times. Udonis Haslem, of course, is a great veteran guy. Kelly Olynyk maybe went one time. But other than that, their main guys, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Bam Adebayo, these guys don't have playoff experience, and I think it's going to hurt them. Lakers, too, have guys like LeBron and Rondo who are used to the pressure of the NBA Finals. I mean, Danny Green, too, even. That's a guy who's been to a ton of NBA Finals. I believe he's been, he's won 3. Or I'm sorry, he's been to 3. He lost one to LeBron. Forgot about that. But, yeah, these are just guys with more playoff experience, and they're used to it. I think overall, too, the Heat just don't match up well with the Lakers. I think the Heat can maybe outplay the Lakers bench, and Bam could contain AD. And, I mean, they played. I'll give it to Bam. He played well against Giannis, but this is completely different. With the Bucks, it was kind of just Giannis and Chris Middleton, so it was kind of easy. The Lakers, although those guys are inconsistent, they have way more options they can rely on. It wasn't just like Giannis, Chris Middleton, or bust, like nothing. They got guys who, although not consistently, these are dudes that can hit shots, like we mentioned, KCP, Danny Green, Alex Caruso. Guys who, although they're not consistent, you have to look for them. You can't just let them slide. So I think the Lakers are just a different team. And I think the Heat simply won't have an answer if the role players play to their full potential. I don't see the Lakers. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened with the mic, but I don't see the Heat having a chance if the Lakers role players figure out what they're doing and they heat up. So yeah, I expect the Heat to come out and upset the Lakers in at least 1 game. I said 6 because I think they'll be able to get 2, but overall, they generally just don't stand a chance. And that's all for this episode. Look out for my NFL predictions coming out later this week. But that's all for this episode. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.